the new Mishnah. So, new subject, although still to do with Rosh Hashanah, of course. But perhaps we'll come back to that afterwards. Because next Wednesday, of course, will be Rosh Hashanah. So we'll talk about that at the end. When will we meet again? In famous words, aren't they? When will we meet again? Anyway, the Mishnah, Daf Yudches Amud Aleph. All right. Right. The Mishnah. Al Shisho Chadoshim, very interesting Rashi's here. Al Shisho Chadoshim Hashluchim Yotzim. So, in fact, it's more on the next parak, but at least it's starting here. We've spoken about all the Rosh Hashanah. We've spoken about Rosh Hashanah itself. Now we talk about, remember, the ruling is that they come to the Beis HaMikdash. Somebody sees the moon. A few people see the new moon. Of course, a small crescent moon. And the Rabbonim were great astronomers too. They knew exactly what height it should be. And there's wonderful Mishnayos about that in the next parak, about the examination process of the Eidim. Not that necessarily they thought they were trying to fool the Beis Din, although at times they did that too. There was a whole group of people trying to fool the Beis Din. We'll come to that in due course. But besides that, people may have made a mistake. They may have seen, sometimes a reflection or whatever, looking like a moon, a crescent moon. So there would be tests. They would examine them to make sure that it really was correct. And imagine let's get an example. They see the new moon on Sunday night, right? The small crescent moon, it will be on the right-hand side. Anybody who sees the moon should rush off to Beis Din to tell Beis Din we saw the new moon. And don't be worried that somebody said, well, other people probably saw the moon as well. There's a mitzvah, get out there, go to Beis Din. In fact, even on Friday night, you can do that. And there are various Mishnayos about that. So they would go to Beis Din and they would present their case saying, we saw the moon, and they would check it out with them. Where exactly were you? How high was it? How the crescent moon, which shape, etc. In fact, the wonderful Mishnayos about they would have a blackboard. Remember blackboards? I suppose now it's whiteboards, isn't it? In the old days, there were blackboards, and they would have a board and they would point, was the moon this shape? Which way round was it? And they knew exactly what the answers were meant to be, and they were just checking out the Eidim. So, assuming the Eidim got it right, which means they really did see the new moon, or imagine, so again, Sunday night, they would see the new moon. Monday, or Sunday night even, they can rush off to Beis Din. Monday, they would be tested, checked. If, in fact, it was a new moon, then they would announce that Sunday night, Monday, was Rosh Chodesh, because the new moon has been seen. Okay? We'll talk about that, what did they do? Originally, there were bonfires, but people started tampering with that, because if imagine at night there's a bonfire waiting for the next mountain. You can imagine this in Switzerland. But here you're talking about going out from Yerushalayim, from Har HaZeisim outwards. You're going towards Bovel to tell everybody that the new moon was yesterday. So that night, so again, Sunday night, 2 people at least saw the new moon, come to Beis Din. Monday, they announced that Sunday night, Monday was the new moon, because they've seen the new moon. Of course, it's going to be a crescent with the light on the right-hand side of the moon as we're looking up, because, of course, the sun is shining on it. Yeah. So, yeah. What would happen next? On Monday, they'd announce, yes. What happens now? They would send people out. This is called the Shaluchim. They would send people out to tell the people in Bovel that, yes, the moon was seen, and therefore Sunday night, Monday was Rosh Chodesh. Don't forget, a month could be either 29 or 30, because in fact, they're 29 and a half days, we've spoken about this before, for the moon to circuit round, to go round the earth at 29 and a half days. That's why Some months are 29 and some are 30 alternately, because it's 29, 30, 29 to make up the 29 and a half. You with me? More about that and the calculations involved later on, not today. So people are waiting to find out when was the new moon. Was the new moon seen on, in my example, Sunday night? Imagine Sunday was day 29. Was the moon seen after that Sunday night or no? Maybe that night it wasn't seen. It was only seen on Monday night. So people further away from Yerushalayim won't have known, no phones, no emails. They won't have known exactly when the Rosh Chodesh was. So they would send out people, shluchim, to tell everybody when they made the Rosh Chodesh. Now, obviously, imagine we're talking about Nisan. It depends how far you can get going from, remember, in my example, they saw the Chodesh on the Sunday night. Monday, they're already sending out the Eidim, they're sending out the Shluchim. And depending on how far they get, people will know whether Sunday night, Monday was Rosh Chodesh. Any person beyond that in the 15 days going up to Pesach would not have known. And therefore, from there on, they would have to keep 2 days. That's how we get the 2 days in Chutz La'aretz. People beyond that distance would not have known. Okay, but there'll be much more of that in due course. Says our Mishnah, Al Shisho Chadoshim Hashluchim Yoitzin. There are 6 months that the Shluchim would go out as far as they could to tell people that, yes, the moon was sighted. So in my example again, Sunday night, Monday, they've confirmed that in the Beis Din. They're quite happy with that. They start going out, but only on certain months they would send shluchim out. Now, it's nice to know what the date is in the Hebrew calendar, but not crucial every single month. For example, in Cheshvan, unless you're writing documents, do you really need to know whether it's the 4th of Cheshvan or the 5th of Cheshvan? Don't really need to know that. So look at this. There are 6 months that the Shaluchim Yoitzim, says the Mishnah in Yud Ches, the bottom, 3 lines up. Months that you do need to know when Rosh Chodesh is. For example, says the Mishnah, listen, Mipnei Pesach. You want as many people to know exactly when is the first of the month. In my example, it was, let's say, on the Sunday night, Monday. You want enough people to know that Rosh Chodesh was on the Monday, so that the 15th will be on the Monday, and that's when Pesach is. Any person beyond that distance that they could reach in 15 days wouldn't know whether Monday was Rosh Chodesh, or in my example, maybe it was Tuesday was Rosh Chodesh. Yeah? Are you happy with that? 29 days. After 29 days, Sunday night, the moon is seen. They weren't sure whether it will be seen on Sunday night. It may only be seen on Monday night, in which case Rosh Chodesh will be Monday night, Tuesday, and Pesach will be 1 day later. So they would send out Shaluchim, and Nisan was one of them. So people, as many people as possible, would know exactly when Pesach was. They therefore would only have 1 day Yom Tov, 1 day of the first days of Yom Tov. They would know exactly, as we know, Yom Tov Pesach is 7 days, and they will keep 7 days Yom Tov. Wonderful. So one of them is Pesach. Have a quick look at the Rashi, who explains this. Al Shisho Chadoshim Shaluchim Yoitzim, says Rashi. Have you got it on the Mishnah? Yeah. Shekitshu Beis Din HaChodesh Al Pi Eidim. The Beis Din would have sanctified that month through Eidim. My example, Sunday night, they see the moon. Monday, they would come and say, yes, Mekudesh, Mekudesh, today is Rosh Chodesh. Wonderful. Continue Rashi. Kshero es hachodesh, when they see the new moon, the small crescent moon. First sightings of the moon, off they went to Bezdin. And what would they do? Umodin hashluchim lagoyla. These shluchim, messengers, would make known to the goyla, people outside Eretz Yisrael, as far as they could, Yom Shekudshuhu, the day that they sanctified the new moon, as far as they could get, in B'Yom Shloshim, if it will be the 30th, then let's just think about this. You've had 29 days up to Sunday, including Sunday, the 29th of the month. If they make Sunday night Rosh Chodesh, then it means what would have been the 30th day of the month. Again, Rashi, if of course Sunday night will be Rosh Chodesh, it means that Sunday was day 29, and it's what's called a choser month. It's lacking in the fullness, because as I said before, the month can either be 29 or 30, because it's 29 and a half. You with me? You've got to make when you see the moon. So that's called choser, or maybe b'yom shloshim ve'echad. If you don't see the moon on Sunday night and you see it on the Monday night, that means therefore that the moon was seen on what would have been day 31. That day 31 now becomes day 1 of the new month. In that case, then the previous month was a mole, a full month, which means a 30-day month. Yeah. Now, of course, we have the calendar set up by Hillel II around the year 359 CE. He was a 14th generation of Hillel HaZoken. So he fixed the calendar because, of course, once we're in Golos, it's more difficult to get to the Bezdin. The Bezdin wasn't sitting anymore in Yerushalayim, so therefore they fixed the calendar. And of course, the calendar, by and large, will have a choser and a mole, which means 29 and a 30, 29 and 30. Elul was one of the months which is in the calendar, was 29 days. That means today was the 24th of Elul, being a Wednesday, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. 29 will be Monday. And as Elul is choser, it's one of the months which is choser. It's got to be either mole or choser. After the Monday, Tuesday will be Rosh Hashanah. Okay? So back to another Rashi. Mipnei Pesach. So this was one of the months. It's important to know. You need to know when Pesach is. Says Rashi, Mipnei Pesach. How far were they going to go? They're going to go until you get to Pesach. Chutz min haShabbosos. The shluchim are not allowed to be machal on Shabbos, so they would only travel on days other than Shabbos, and they will get as far as they could to tell people that the month when Rosh Chodesh was, and all those people that know when the Rosh Chodesh was will only have to keep 7 days Yom Tov rather than 8. Okay, back now to our Mishnah. So our Mishnah is trying to work out what months is it important to know the actual the date in the calendar when the Rosh Chodesh was. One of them clearly is this. Carry on the Mishnah. Next, Al-Av. Why do people need to know in Av the dates? Is it important whether it's the 17th of Av or the 18th of Av? Says the Mishnah, yes. Mipnei hatanis, because of the tanis. What tanis we're talking about? Tisha b'Av. So obviously this is after the Churban Habayis. Have a look at Rashi. Now this is an interesting one. We always think about the shluchim traveling as far as they can in 15 days, but Tisha b'Av is on the 9th. pointless telling people on the, the 14th of Av, when Tisha B'Av, it's all over. So therefore, exactly, have a look at Rashi. V'holchin kol shamoinas hayomim chutz min Shabbos. This was an example where they can't travel that far to tell everybody when Rosh Chodesh Av was. But as far as they can get, by the time of Tisha B'Av, people would keep that, they would know when Tisha B'Av was. Beyond that, you can't be sure. Again, when it comes to a Tanis, you're not going to ask people to fast 2 days. So they would generally go by the rule of Molei Choseh 29:30, 29:30. It might not always happen like that in practice, but they will go according to the general rule. But anyway, more about that. Interesting, we've going through the calendar, we've gone from Nisan to Av. What about Shavuos? Don't you need to know when Shavuos is? Why don't they go out for the first of Sivan?
7 weeks.
Pardon?
7 weeks.
Yeah, it's
Well done, sir.
From Pesach.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, 50, absolutely correct. 7 weeks, 50 days. Look at Tosfos. Second penultimate Tosfos on the page. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Al Nisan mipnei Pesach, aval al Sivan mipnei Atzeres, to go out on after the first of Sivan to tell people when Shavuos will be. Of course, you haven't got much time. You've only got the 6th of Sivan is already going to be Shavuos, but that's unnecessary. Why? Lo tzorich. De ba'omer hadova tolui. Remember, the day after Pesach, they bring the korban omer, and even if you don't, that's when you start the counting. And then what do you count? Quite right, Michael, you've got your 7 sevens, you've got your 49 days. And as Jonathan mentioned, on the 50th day will be Shavuos. So says the Tosfos, Kedorina La'el, Gemara, we've learned this before, Davov, to Tony Rav Shemaya. Atzeres, in the olden days, pretty tricky for those people in the business of writing calendars. You couldn't write a calendar. You could not say what date Shavuos would be. What do you mean you couldn't say? Shavuos is not on a fixed, now of course in nowadays without calendar, we've got a fixed date. But as we said before, it's the 50th day after you've had 49 days, that's when Shavuos will be. So then it depends. It depends, the months in between Nisan and Iyar, whether they're Mole or Choseh. If you understand, all you need is this counting of 49. So the counting of 49, continue Tosfos. Look at the Tosfos. Atzeres pa'omim chamisha. Sometimes it might be on the 5th of Sivan. Pa'omim shisha, pa'omim shiva. Why sometimes 5, 6, 7? Imagine both Nisan and Iyar are Mole. The full 30 days. Then if you do the calculations, you'll find that Shavuos will be on the 5th of Sivan. If one of the months is Mole and one is Choseh, you'll find it'll be on the 6th. That's what we have today, because Nisan is Mole in our calendar and Iyar is Choseh. What would happen if both Nisan and Iyar are both 29-day months? Pa'omim Shiva. Then it might actually be, you'd push it out and you'd end up being on the 7th. So therefore it's unnecessary for, obviously, interesting, for Nisan you need to go out and they'll find out when Pesach is. And by the time, later on, once the message eventually gets out, it turns out that everybody would know when Shavuos is, which begs a very interesting question.
Why are they 2-day Yom Tov on Shavuos?
Very good, sir. That is the question asked by the Chassam Sofer and others. You're absolutely right. Shavuos, wherever you are, you're bound to hear in 50 days when Rosh Chodesh Nisan was. So it turns out, sorry?
Low plug.
Well done, sir. Low plug is the answer that's given. Lo plug means they didn't want to differentiate, amazing power, not to differentiate between the different Yom Tovim, because otherwise people will say, oh, Shavuos is only one day, the other Yom Tov are one day as well. So for this low plug, they instituted that it should definitely still be 2 days Yom Tov beyond the I say out in Golus, which is very interesting. So it turns out that for other Yomim Tovim, if they kept 2 days, let's say Pesach or Sukkot, they were keeping 2 days. They were keeping 2 days out of doubt. One of those days was Yom Tov. They weren't sure which day it was. When it comes to Shavuos, there's a mitzvah midrabanon to have 2 days Yom Tov. That second is not, the second day Yom Tov of Shavuos is not because of a sophic at all. There's no doubt. But the Chachamim have said, we want you to keep a second day Yom Tov in Chutz La'oretz, because otherwise there'll be confusion. Amazing power they've got. And therefore we go through everything, including the davening. Besides the lack of work, davening, laning, low plug is strong enough, because otherwise they were scared people would say, well, Shavuos is 1 day everywhere, maybe Sukkot is only 1 day. So therefore, low plug, as we said, applies to Shavuos as well. Very good indeed. Okay, so where are we up to? Nisan, Av. What's the next one? Says the Gemara, Al Elul mipnei Rosh Hashanah. Al Elul mipnei Rosh Hashanah. What does that mean? Elul because of Rosh Hashanah. I mean, Rosh Hashanah is Tishri, not Elul.
Because it might be the last day of Elul, if you count.
So therefore,
doubt would be the day before the first of Tishri.
But you still won't be certain which day it is.
And that's why you have 2 days. Now.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. You're right. If you didn't know when the first of Elul was, then you'd end up with more than just 2 days Yom Tov. You'd have to have 3 days Yom Tov, because you wouldn't know. Yeah? Rosh Hashanah is either after 29 days or 30 days from the first of Elul, correct? If you don't know when the first of Elul is, maybe it was the day before, you'd have to have an additional calculation. Maybe it will be the day before that. Do you understand the sums or not? Rosh Hashanah is going now. You can't go anywhere. I mean, Rosh Hashanah. You don't have to be very far away from Yerushalayim. You just will not know when. Of course, and that's why everybody keeps 2 days Rosh Hashanah, even in Eretz Yisrael, because they couldn't know when the first of Tishri. They can't get a message out on you. I mean, it's Yom Tov. How far can you get? Pesach and Sukkot, you've got 15 days to tell everybody. But on Rosh Hashanah, they come and imagine it's the end of the day. It's too late, right? So you can't go, how far can you get on Rosh Hashanah to tell anybody? But you need to know when the starting point is. If you know when the starting point is from the first of Elul, then you can count 29 or 30. But if the first of Elul may have been the day before, you don't know whether it's 29 or 30, you may end up with 3 days of Rosh Hashanah. Have a look at Rashi. Al Elul mipnei Rosh Hashanah. Modim, they make known, Mosai Hischil Elul. When did Elul start? When did they make Rosh Hashanah? Now, this is a fascinating point. According to Rashi, they didn't have 2 days Yom Tov for Rosh Hashanah. You'll see a Machlikas Rashi Tosfos. The way I explained it to you, there'll be 2 days Rosh Hashanah, and you're saving yourself. At least you know when the starting point is. It's either 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. If you didn't know when to start, and it could have been the day before that, then you've got another option in your calculations. You'd have to have a 3rd day of Rosh Hashanah. Do you understand what I mean? Or not? Yeah? You're starting on a particular day. If you don't know when the start point is, and you may be starting on one of 2 days, then of them, one of those 2 days, you'd have to count 29 and 30 from each of them. With me? if you're counting 29 and 30 days from two separate days, the first one will give you 2 days. The second one will give you the second day from the first and a third day. So you end up with 3 days. That's not how Rashi learns. Look at this, fascinating. Al Elu b'nei Rosh Hashanah, Modir Mosai Hischil Elu. Have you got the Rashi?
What's the objection to 3 days?
Big one?
What's the objection to 3 days?
Oh, excuse me, there are enough people who complain about 2.
No, that's a good point, but what's the objection?
No, the objection is that you're absolutely right. Why should people stop work for 3 days? You know, business is business. They are concerned. They don't want people to have to, you know, take off time unnecessarily. Doing no malacha for 3 days. That's a big bind on everybody.
So
I know 2 days is well, but 3 is even longer. 2, we have no option. We don't know what day it is. What are we meant to do? Now, forget about today's now that we do know. That's a separate piece. But imagine in those days, you don't know when Rosh Hashanah, you don't know when Pesach is. What are you meant to do? Let's say
as well as
question. Somebody.
Sorry, can I just ask? As well as, of course, you know, people want to work or need to work, but also there's a lot of brachas levatola, and you're saying a different tefillah and
sitting in a sukkah an extra day. Maybe it's, you know, raining, forcing people to eat matzahs for an extra day. No, I know. So we took it the Rosh Hashanah.
It's not just not just the discomfort.
No, I take that back. What I just said. It's only you're right, Benji. You're right.
We're supposed to put on to fill in, and because going back to Shavuos and the low plug, it's always puzzled me why the Chachamim said we low plug. I mean, we count 50 days or 49 days first to Omer. We know what's coming up. There's so much opportunity to tell people Shavuos, you only have to keep 1 day, and
you're right. It looked like there would have been many people who would have got confused and say Shavuos is only 1 day. There's no Sveika de Yoma for Shavuos, and people may have got confused. You're right. It would need I mean, if we'd be sitting today and discussing this and making the rules, would we have come up with that? That's what they decided.
Because I just wonder if there's another reason. Okay, so I can see low plug is an important thing, but I just wonder if there's also some other reason. And also, you say it's the Chassam Sofer who asked the question. I mean, that's quite recent. That's only a couple of years. No, you're right. It puzzles me that why did people discuss this 2,000 years ago, and now the Rashi is saying there's the machlokas about Rosh Hashanah, whether people actually kept 1 day or 2 days.
Well, look at this. This is, look at the Rashi here. Modir Mosai Hischil Elu, V'oisim Rosh Hashanah b'yoim shloshim le'elu. That's interesting. Rosh Hashanah they kept on the 30th day of Elul, if you see what I mean. Continued Rashi. V'goyla. Why? The Rov Shonim Ein Elul Ma'uba. Amazing. For Rosh Hashanah, Elul almost always was a Chosem month, a 29-day month. Once, therefore, you knew the first of Elul, if almost always Elul was the 29-day month, you count 29 days from Elul, and Rosh Hashanah was 1 day. Amazing. Even though it's only a doubt. You with me? Why didn't you make 2 days? Shemo Ya'avruhu Bezdin. Maybe Bezdin will make Elul an extra day because the moon is not visible. Ef Shelahem Ladas, they can't know. Right? V'al kochon holchin achar rov shonim. Rashi, amazing. Rashi says in this instance they were following the majority of months. V'im lo yodu mosai hischel el. If you wouldn't know when Elul starts, no yodu yom shaloshim. You wouldn't know the 30th day. Now look at Tosfos. V'al Elul b'nei Rosh Hashanah modia mosai masil Elul v'osim Rosh Hashanah b'yom shloshim le'elul b'goyla. you'd make it on the 30th. Maybe Elul was 29 days, which means the 30th will be Rosh Hashanah. V'gam l'mocharosai, also the day after, because you don't know whether Elul was a 29 or a 30-day month. So at least once you know when the first of Elul was, you can do that calculation and you end up with 2 days Rosh Hashanah. Rashi
But
didn't
excuse
say
me,
that.
in Eretz Yisrael, they would have had enough time, wouldn't they, Norman, to get. So they tell you when Rosh Chodesh Elul was, or you can know that most Eluls are Choser. So the time
Yes.
comes, at least in Eretz Yisrael, that you would know for Rosh Hashanah, wouldn't you? Unless I'm misunderstood.
What do you mean you'd know? But you still don't know how long Elul is. You don't know how long it's
We
going
do,
to
because Rove, we know that Rove, most Eluls are Choser. I mean,
absolutely.
No,
You're Rashi man.
by the time Rosh Hashanah comes,
Losing you.
hello?
Hello, using you a bit. I don't know if it's just me.
No, maybe me. Sorry. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can. It's this Coast Guard business. It's probably
No, it's
confusing.
not. Yeah, no, no, I've moved on from there.
You moved on. I'm joking. No, I hear your point. Your point is Rashi. Absolutely, that's what Rashi's saying. Every person only kept Rosh Hashanah exactly 1 day because of this rove. Says Tosfos, no, that's not true. You don't follow the rove. We don't normally follow this rove because Elul could be a 30-day month, but you need to know when to start the first of Elul.
All right, fair enough.
Because then you can count 29 or 30. So you can see there are 2 ways. Interesting how Rashi's taking it. Let's just quickly, if you've got something on this, hold on a minute. Have a look. If you've got the Rashash at the back, if you haven't, I'll just tell you what he says. That's your Avul. He says on Tosfos, Miloshan Rashi. I don't know if you've got the Rashash at the back. If you've got a full Gemara, I'll read it. It's fine. Avul Miloshan Rashi Muvur. It's very clear from Rashi. Shelo osu elu yom echad. They only kept 1 day. You can see that clearly. Shari kosav afapi shesofik. Holchin acharov. Tosfos didn't say that. Tosfos said you're not going to follow the majority. You don't follow the majority on this point. It can be one or the other. But you need to know when to start because then you'll only have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Interesting. He suggests the following answer. Rashash, do you understand the question? How can Rashi say, once you know the first day of Elul, you'd know when Rosh Hashanah is? You don't. It's true. Rove will tell you it's most likely to be after 29 days of third, but you don't know for sure. How can you say for sure? He suggests the following answer. Rashi means the same as Tosfos. Yes, there'll be 2 days. What he means is this. The first day of Rosh Hashanah, Ulai Yishloim et Kavonas Rashi. You know what Rashi means? Al Ikar Rosh Hashanah. What does that mean? Da'enu Eloyom Rishon. De B'Sheni Mekalina Inyan Mace. We've had this point before. Sadly for Levias, on the second day of Yom Tov, you can be more lenient. But you don't know a normal second day of Yom Tov, you would say we'd be lenient. We'd say that's what Rashi's talking about. You'd follow the majority to say that that's the first day, and therefore the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it would be forbidden to have Levias even through, as we say, the Umasor Olam. You wouldn't be allowed to dig, but you could have a non-Jew make dig a kavura on the second day of Yom Tov. That's what Rashi means. Rashi means the majority of months. If it was either one or the other, who tells you which one to follow? You with me? If you don't know whether it's going to be 29 or 30, maybe it's actually the real Rosh Hashanah. Will the real Rosh Hashanah stand up, please? If it's the real Rosh Hashanah, you would be not allowed to have levias, even by non-Jews who are digging for you. But if you're following the majority, that would at least allow you on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. I know it's still a doubt, but you can follow the majority to allow you to have a levaya through a non-Jew on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. That's what Rashi's getting at, but not that there's a machlokas between Rashi and Tosfos. So, interesting answer from the Rashash. So that will solve that problem. But we do need to.
Norman, sorry to interrupt.
No, good.
Tosfot doesn't actually raise any bitmiyah on Rashi.
No, he doesn't. No. So you're right. You're right. That's very good. A very good point. Which sounds therefore like the Rashash is suggesting, unless you come up with another answer. Yeah. In other words, the Rashash is learning, and that may well be how Tosfos is learning as well, because otherwise he, wouldn't have taken him long to answer a question against Rashi. He would have said, "V'im toima," how you would bring Pirush Rashi and say, "But I don't understand." Quite right. The Rashash is therefore learning that Rashi agrees with Tosfos that you're going to have 2 days, but the main one will be that first day, because you'd follow the majority, and that will be sufficient to enable you to have levias on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, because unlikely, according to the majority, really, for it to be Rosh Hashanah, you'd have to have it as Rosh Hashanah because you didn't know, but the majority will allow you just to the Malacha. So it's, a good call, Michael. Thank you. Yes. On we go. What's the next month? We said there's 6 months they're going to be sending out the shluchim. Next one, Tishri. Of course.
Norman, would it be appropriate just to say that Rashi's Makel and Tosfos is Machmir? That is another way of answering the difference between them. That Rashi goes Lakul and says, since most of Elul.
I mean, the only.
I'm just asking, can you say that about Rishonim? One's Makel, one's Machmir. I don't know. I'm asking.
You could do, but as Michael raised, you would have thought if Tosfos doesn't hold that, he'd be very quick to ask a question on it. He'd say what allows, especially if he doesn't hold that view, he'd say on Rashi, and presumably the reason he doesn't hold that because he's he's concerned. He should have brought Rashi and said, but it doesn't make sense, Rashi. Where are you coming from? You want to be Makel? Why should you be? I mean, it might be a 30-day. Does the Rove allow you to be Makel on Malacha? No. Sofik Midat Torah L'chumra? Yes. Okay, right. Yeah, and that sounds like where we're coming from. But you're right, the normal sounds like, you learned it, you say just at face value, looks like Rashi is being Makel. Yes.
Okay.
Then we're there, thank you. Then we're up to Tishri. So what have we got so far? Nisan, Av, Elul, 3. Then we've got Tishri. Of course, they're going up for Tishri. Why? Of course, we've got so many Yom Tovim. Now, there's not much they can do about Rosh Hashanah. Ain't going to help them because they're not going to get anywhere. But as far as they can go for the other Yomim Tovim. And of course, they're getting different distances for Yom Kippur. And although Yom Kippur, there's another example. You cannot expect people to fast for 2 days. They'd have to therefore follow the majority there. But look at Rashi. Bal Tishri mipnei takonos hamoedos la'achar shekidshuhu bezdin leTishri. Yeah, imagine in that example. Remember Sunday night they see the moon. Monday they come, and that's the Sunday night going, and that's the first night of Rosh Hashanah. Sunday night they see the moon. Monday they come to Bezdin. They say we saw the moon. Right, today is Rosh Hashanah. After that, the Shluchim, says Rashi Yotzin liyom hamochros. The following day they'd be on their way. Yeah. V'holchin ad mokum sheyecholim lahagia. They go as far as they can ad hachag to tell people when the 1st of Tishri was. Umodim in Ibru Bezdin, exactly the same as before, whether the Bezdin made Elul that extra day, V'im lav. Why? Why do they tell them that? Kadei shelo yehei libom noikfon b'yom kippurim v'sukkos. Notice it says Yom Kippur as well, because you cannot expect people to fast 2 days. So they will have to take a view as far as Yom Kippur is concerned. Very interesting. As the vast, in fact, we've had various Gemara saying they never tried in all instances to keep Elul a 29-day month. But you would like to know, even after the event, that in fact the day you kept for Yom Kippur was the right day. So that's really what Rashi is getting out there, that their libo noikfon, their heart wouldn't be like pumping for Yom Kippur. Certainly for Sukkot that would be easy, but they'd be still going and telling everybody about Yom Kippur as well, to tell them that they would know that actually they did keep the right day. And so that would be good news for them. And as we said, almost always, in fact, if not always, your Elul would have been kept to the 29 then. And the Bezdin have the power to make Rosh Chodesh when they like, quite honestly. And there's a posuk about that, which will come up later on. Okay, so there we are. Next. So we got Tishri, that's number 4. What about Kislev?
No, that wouldn't apply in Golos, would it? This thing about them worrying about Yom Kippur.
Absolutely not. No. They I mean, in Golos, they wouldn't find out, and that's why they would be keeping the 2 days. But they try and go out as far as they can. Yeah. No, you're quite right. For Yom Kippur wouldn't help them. But even for Sukkos, those people would be keeping extra Sukkos. Whereas if you were in the boundaries as how far they could reach, then you wouldn't have that extra day of Yom Tov. And you're quite right, as Benji mentioned, of course, that Tfilis then you wouldn't have Yom Tov Tfilis, and also you'd be back at work. You may prefer not to be back at work, but it depends on your employer. But otherwise, you'd be back at work. What about Kislev? You can get even further now. You need to know when Hanukkah is. When do you want to start Hanukkah? So yes. Go out, and as far as you can get, of course, you've got till the 25th, so you've got quite a lot of time there. And the final one on Adar, Mipnei Purim. You want to know when Purim is. That's the end of that. Then the Mishnah says, Ukashahoya Beis Hamikdash Kayom Yotzim Af Al Ir. They also went out for Iyar. Why did they go out for Iyar if the Beis HaMikdash is in existence? Says the Mishnah, Mipnei Pesach Cotton, or we call it Pesach Sheni. Little Pesach. What's Little Pesach? Have a look at Rashi. Rashi says Pesach Sheni, Pesach Cotton, Pesach Sheni. What was the rule about Pesach Sheni? Do you remember? There was a second bite of the cherry. Those people who were Tomei, they were unwell. They couldn't reach the Beis HaMikdash in time for the first Pesach. Then on the 14th of Iyar is Pesach Sheni. They can then come and bring, remember the people were Tameim, Lo Yochlu Lasos HaPesach. They couldn't bring the Pesach, so they have a second chance to bring the Korban Pesach, and therefore it's important that people know. So if anybody was abroad and they couldn't get to Yerushalayim, outside the boundaries, so Rashi says, let's Tome, someone who was Tome, or he was far away, couldn't actually reach, whatever reason, or Rishon on the first opportunity, that's Pesach Rishon, the first Pesach, which of course is in Nisan, then they would have another bite of the cherry. The only problem is this wording af. Also, they would have gone out. What's af mean? Also, which is fair enough. What does that mean? When the Beis HaMikdash was in existence, they also went out for Iyar. So in other words, you end up not with 6, but 7. What's the problem with that? Well, around the side of my Gemara, I've got a note saying that if you look in the Mishnayos, you find this word af is not there.
Hanukkah.
No, you still want to go up for Hanukkah.
What about Purim? You wouldn't have needed that at that
Why
time.
not? Oh, because it's
Too late. Well, they never coexisted at the same time. The
why
Beit
can't you? If Beis Hamikdash is in existence, so you wouldn't be going up for Purim?
No. Oh,
Second
no,
Beis
yes, you would.
Hamikdash?
The second, of course you would. Yeah.
You got the second Beis Hamikdash.
Yeah.
But there's something you wouldn't be going out for.
Tisha B'Av.
Correct. You don't need to go up for Tisha B'Av because if the Beis Hamikdash is in existence, then there won't be a Tisha B'Av. In fact, the Gemara will pick that up. It'll be l'soso and l'simcha. That's exactly what we say. Remember all the Yehofech l'soso and l'simcha. We say that for Shiva also for Talmud. All those fasts will disappear. We've got the Beis Hamikdash. So that's why they do say many girsos. If you look at the Mishnayos, you don't have that word af.
Well, it'd still be celebrated, but in a different way. Koralai Moed. I mean, Tish B'Av's not going to. It won't.
That's true, but
perhaps you don't need the chumras for when to know to fast. But the idea that it's going to disappear is, I thought, incorrect. Well, I don't mean to be too.
No, I hear what you're saying, but do you need to send out the shliach to tell what day it's on? I mean, people don't mind celebrating on 2 days. That's quite nice.
Well, Sam will do it on 3 days, and it's fine. Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. But nobody minds. If fasting, you need to know when Tisha B'Av is. If there's no fast, it's not crucial to send out the shlichim. You know, okay, you won't say tachanun on both those days. You can have a drink of, lekovad. It'll now become a yom tov, if you like, Tisha B'Av. But there's nothing special that you don't.
I don't know what it means by the moed, Koralai Moed. I don't know what the speciality of it was.
Let's leave the moed part out. But it's not going to be a fast.
Yeah.
There won't be. You don't need to know what day.
No, that's true.
Tisha B'Av. If there's nothing's happening on it other than drink of vodka, or whatever. There's nothing special you need to know. But okay, other people say they leave the word af, and it means there's another month. We had all these different months. Oh yeah, of course there'll only be 6, but there's another. That's what it means by af. Another month that you need to be concerned about. And of course, Av will disappear, but it's a different month instead of. But that's just, okay. Excellent. The Gemara now will go on, and we'll perhaps pick that up. Running out of time. As we turn
Norman,
the page. Hello, yes.
If I can come in here.
Charles, we can't see you. We can't see you, Charles. Are you well?
Well, that may be an advantage.
Oh, no, certainly not.
But you can hear me, which is perhaps.
We can hear you. We certainly can hear you, yes. Yes, please fire away.
Why is there the assumption that at the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, they were not keeping Tisha B'Av? Surely they would have kept it because of the terrible destruction and the massacre of the Jewish people and the Galut, which began and continued even, especially during the time of the Second Temple.
That's true. That's true. But nevertheless, as the Beis Hamikdash has been rebuilt, you might want to in other ways, you maybe actually, I wouldn't say not celebrating, but in other ways you would be noting the tragedies, but you wouldn't continue with Tisha B'Av. You cannot demand that people should be fasting for the destruction of the temple if it's been rebuilt. Now, it's true, there were several things that happened, and it says, nevertheless, as you say, there were some massacres taking place, but the actual insistence on people fasting, that would have disappeared. So yes, maybe they would be signifying the fact that, tragedies are continuing on, etc. But the actual fast as a Tisha B'Av, that and the demands on the community to fast, as we do have on Tisha B'Av, that would disappear. In fact, your question really is a posuk which we'll have on the Omid base, again, not for today, where it actually the posuk says that those fasts, if you have the Beis Hamikdash, they will turn into Sosan and Simcha. Now, I appreciate what you're saying, but nevertheless, as far as the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash, as that has come back, then that aspect is no longer relevant, and therefore the fast will not be there. But that will actually come up from a posuk from Zechariah. What I'd like to, I hope that answers your questions. In other words, yes, still, of course, what was taking place, the tragedies, etc. Nevertheless, the actual fast, the command, if you like, or the mitzvah of the fast, that would have disappeared, and therefore it was unnecessary for the witnesses to go out. Those people who, want to fast and take it upon themselves, they can do so, and they chose whatever day they like. But of course, the actual time of Tisha B'Av will disappear. What I'd like to do just in the next 2 minutes is go back to the beginning of something we spoke about last week, as we're, within the week now of Rosh Hashanah. Do you remember? We spoke about, just a few lines above this Mishnah, we spoke about the Mishnah. It goes back on the Mishnah that on Rosh Hashanah, everybody passes in front of Hashem, Kivnei Meroim. Do you remember? In single file. And we gave various Mishalim to explain how they were walking in single file with lots of different ways of learning. But the idea clearly is it's a single file, and that's the way that they are judged. Then just pick this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines up from the end of the page. Less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up. And I say 7 or 8. 7 lines up. Beginning of the line begins Omar Rabba Baba Chona Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Have you got that? We'll close with this. Yeah, got it? 7 lines up from the page. Yud Ches Omad Aleph, just above the Mishnah. 7 lines up from the base. 1, 2, 3. Then you got the Mishnah. Another 4 takes you to Omar Rabba Baba Chona. Omar Rabba Baba Chona Omar Rabbi Yochanan. V'kulon niskorim. We learned this last week. V'kulon niskorim b'skira achas. Amazing statement. They are all examined. B'skira achas. Soika means like with one gaze. Hashem judges, although we just spoke about this individual judgment, they're all judged with one gaze. We spoke about this last week, but I'd like to give this week a different interpretation based on this called the Sefer the Sifsei Chaim, Rab Chaim Friedlander Zatzal. He was a mashgiach in Old Ponevezh, who says the following: what is this telling us? What we need to know we can't fathom in any possible way what God is doing, judging people, and we don't. The fact that he, in one gaze, singly, it's mean. What does it mean to us? He says this is telling us an important principle. Everyone is judged, he says, as an individual. Everyone is unique. My father used to always talk to the children on this, whether it was a mitzvah or any other occasion. Every person has a unique tafkid, a job, a role. Of course, we've got to try and find out what that role is, but every person unique. And they are judged on Rosh Hashanah. How are they performing against that unique role that they have? But there's something else. They're also being judged. We spoke about this last week, but there's a slightly different twist this time. Every person's being judged as part of Klal Yisrael. What do I mean by that? I mean, as part of the wonderful picture, the symphony, a tapestry, if you like, of the whole picture, which is meant to be there, depending on every person doing their piece. So yes, there's an individual, but there's the group picture. Are they letting the team down? Are they doing great things for the team of Am Yisrael? I think my father, Zechariah Bracha, would have put it the following way. May I appeal to you, particularly Simon, where from your father's perspective, every person is a soloist, but they're also a member of the orchestra. They got their job as a soloist and they're going to be judged on that in their role. But they're also part of the orchestra. And that orchestra is meant to be performing this most wonderful, glorious symphony. What are they doing? What they've done and the effect it's had globally on, as I say, this tapestry or the symphony is crucial. There's a fantastic story I was reading about Toscanini. I'm sure Simon can tell us a lot about Toscanini, but not now. Toscanini, one of the greatest. We're talking about the conductor. Absolutely, the maestro, incredible. People reading about Toscanini. I don't know if people heard this story. There was a biographer who was working with him. And they were going through various recordings. Have you heard this story? They're going through various recordings, music and views, etc. They wanted his, doing a biography on Toscanini. And they played a bit of music. It wasn't a bit, symphony. And Toscanini was not happy. He was not happy. And he said to the biographer, what do you think of that? And the biographer said, I thought it's beautiful, actually. He said, you missed a point here. They're meant to be 14 violinists. I only heard 13 violinists. And the biographer thought, he's not going to argue with the maestro. I can't understand that. You know, especially, you know, but can't believe it. Anyway, when he went home, he made his, went into it and delved into it and to find out about that actual recording. And it turns out he was right. There were 13 violinists there. Very powerful. It's okay, not all of us can actually have the ear to spot the difference it's going to make. But for perfection, if you want that symphony to sound exactly as it was meant to sound, you need 14 violinists. And the moshel there is very clear. Every person has a part to play. Yeah, you could be the first violinist, you might be timpani, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Every person has their part to play. And if you're talking about this wonderful symphony, every person counts. Whatever they're doing counts. And that Sekira Achas that Rabbi Yochanan said means in this wonderful symphony, or maybe it's choral piece if you like, every person is needed. Are you fulfilling your job, which makes that symphony beautiful? Tapestry, if you like. And that's the two judgments that we need to be thinking about. Fulfilling, as I say, as a soloist, whatever we're meant to be doing, everybody has their different role. As I say, in the orchestra too, percussion as well. Every person on triangle, whatever it is, everybody's got their role. And we need to be thinking about that, what we're doing to try and fulfill our role and do what we can. But also don't forget the very big picture, because we are part of Klal Yisrael, part of the world, if you like, the fabric, the beauty that's meant to be taking place because of us. And therefore, we have that great responsibility in those two directions, individually or beskira achas, looked at as one big gaze across the whole, going from the beginning of time onwards, actually. there's meant to be that huge, as I say, tapestry, orchestra, symphony, whatever you like. And that's what we need to be thinking about. And maybe over these days, coming up Rosh Hashanah and the Aseret Shuvah, etc., thinking about that, in which way can we try and ensure that ensure is quite a tough word, but at least moving onwards in that way, and whatever skills we have, utilizing to the best everyone in their own particular area. And to say everyone, nobody should ever think that, what am I adding to this symphony? Toscanini spotted it, and if he could, this is a mere mortal. Every person does add their bit, and we've really got to think about that, in which case can we enhance that whole picture as we go forward. So with that, gentlemen, I wish you well. Have a ksiva v'chasima tova. Wednesday nights, oh dear. Next Wednesday is Rosh Hashanah. The following Wednesday is Kol Nidrei. The following Wednesday is Sukkot. Second day Sukkot. The following Wednesday is Simchat Torah. Without taking my luach or calendar out, can somebody tell me when is the next free Wednesday? Anybody got a calendar on them? I think we're off for a bit. Sad. Time to do Chazorah, maybe? 1 minute. What date have you got? Which is the
6th of October, actually.
2000.
Yeah,
6th of October.
5 weeks time.
5 weeks from today. Yeah, so that's right. We've got Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, and then the week after that, all being well. So it is quite a long time. I wish everybody well. And I say, I hope you're moichel me for any, if I didn't take enough attention of some of your questions, or perhaps the wrong shot in the Gemara. Do what we can. But anyway, I do wish everybody well. I say a good Geben Shiur, ksiva chasima tova. You should be well. All of us should be well as we go forward, and say the whole of Klal Yisrael, the whole world. And let's hope for great things in the coming year, and end all these. I don't want to go through that down that even. Making it a lot easier to get out.
And thank you, Norman, for everything you've done for all of us.
No, I got
really,
great pleasure.
Sterling.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's kept.
We know the rules.
Anchored.
Remember the person giving the shares, the person who gains most from this. So that's me. So thank you very much indeed, gentlemen.
Well, we certainly do as well.
Good. Thank you very much indeed for those words. And I say, wishing everybody very well.